had a little bit from us about phonics screening, but we just want to share everything with you that we're going to do between now and the summer. So we've put a little PowerPoint together just to share it with you. So phonics is the way that we use to teach children to read quickly and skillfully. So we teach them first of all the basic sounds of individual letters, and then you'll hear them coming home with all kinds of strange words, digraphs and trigraphs and splits and all kinds of things. You'll think, what on earth does that mean? If you ask them, oh, what's this sound or what's this sound, sometimes they'll say to you, oh, it's two letters and it makes one sound. That's what we call a digraph. But we have to teach the children the terms as well as the sounds. They just know them. They just repeat them and say, oh, you've got to do this and you've got to do this, and they do just know them. They've been learning since reception, if they were here earlier, maybe even if they've been to nurseries, the simple sounds of letters, and we build them, we put them together, we make words from them and teach the children to read that way. They use this knowledge and decode words, so they'll start to look at bigger words, chunk words, look for parts of words and put them all back together, and all of these first steps are really important for them to learn to read and to enjoy reading. This is one of the big alphabets that we use. We start with the simpler letters that sounds at the top, then we move down to two letters that make a certain sound, work our way through them, and then eventually sort of into year one, using the ear, the I, the E, the splits where we've got magic E at the end that makes I say I or at say A, all the way down to the very bottom, and they're the ones that we're sort of really reinforcing now, the yaw, the oi, the different kinds of aw's and oohs. So children coming home, you'll sort of read with them at night, look at the books, talk about the things, and they'll say, oh, is this an sound or an aw sound? This is the point in the year where it gets a little bit tricky, because English being the lovely language that it is, we've got so many different ways of making the sounds, and this is the point in the year where the children are sort of exploring, is it with an etra, is it with an upra, is it an with an itra, and you'll notice as they write things for you, sometimes the spelling's great because you've really got to sort of look at it and think, what could that say, and you know, which sounds have they used, but if you ask them, that's usually where it comes from, that they've used those reading sounds to write their own spellings, and it's a real skill. Our phonics screening check is something that every year one child does. It's a national thing, and it's a statutory check that we do. So every child at the end of year one does this. We report the results. It's usually June time, usually first 2 weeks-ish in June after half term, and we've got 2 weeks to do it. So we sort of take our time and work our way through with each child individually. They do it with us, so it's somebody that's familiar, and we just go through and read the words. When we do this screening check, it's a 40-page mixed real and nonsense words, which sounds a lot of words. The children are used to it. They came up from reception doing them, they do them with us every half term, they see the words all the time at daily phonics lessons, reading sessions. They learn to chunk the words, to put sound buttons on, and then they read them. When we do the check, we can do it in one go. If they're a confident reader and they just whiz through them, we do them, just tick them off. If they need a break, we can just stop, we can do the first 5, come back to it later, do the next 5, we can do it over a week. It's entirely up to us and how we think they're coping with this. To be honest, the children are so used to it, they usually just go, oh yeah, I can do these, and just whiz through them. It checks that the children can read real words and nonsense words, because we need to know that they can sound out and that they can recognise all of the sounds. So if we only gave them real words to read, they may recognise the words and just read them by sight, but we put these alien words in, and it gives them a visual clue that they've not got to make sense of it by having the picture there. So the ones without a picture are the real words. They just sound them out and say the word as it is, and then with the nonsense words exactly the same, but they sound it out and try and keep it as that, not make it into a word that they know. So there you've got that. Children might try and make it into a word that they know that sounds similar if the alien wasn't there, so it's just there to give them a helping hand. They're in there because we want to know that they know the sounds. These words are all phonetically decodable, they can all be chunked, but they're not actual words, and we don't want them to switch the order of the letters to make it into something. It sounds a bit strange, but the children just read them anyway, don't pay any attention to it because they're so used to it. So words like grip and snob, they just look at the chunks, put it together, and of course that's a word. So as the children have gone along, they've seen them all the time. We start with very simple CBC words, then we build them up into bigger words, and by the time we get to this point in the year, most of your children are reading most of the words quite confidently. We don't have a set that they do. Each year the government sends us a paper with whatever they've made up on there, and that's what we do. So we use past papers to check that they're confident in reading the real and the nonsense words, and sort of go through it. Crucially, it doesn't give them any clues, so they haven't got a picture clue to look at, they can't use the reading strategies, jump to the end of the sentence, come back and put it in. It simply is, can you read that word? And they are really good at doing that now. The pass mark for the last, well, we've not done it for the last 2 years, but the 4 years previously has been 32 out of 40. It can vary between 32 and 35. Generally, they tell us pretty soon after we've done it what the pass mark is going to be, and then obviously we know how many children have reached